She pulled into a driveway on an ordinary Thursday afternoon. Minutes later, she was fighting for her life. By nightfall, she was gone, and the women accused of taking her from her 5 children were smiling for the camera on their way to jail. This is a story about a friendship or a rivalry, we still don't know which, about a mother who never made it home, and about the moment a small Texas border town watched 3 young women go from ordinary lives online to accused of murder in a single afternoon. Viewer discretion is advised. This case deals with sensitive and emotional subject matter. Welcome to the Homicide Room, where monsters are fished out for punishment. If this is your first time here, subscribe and turn on notifications so you catch how this one unfolds. And in the comments, let us know where in the world you're watching from. We love seeing how far this community stretches. Now, let's rewind to the beginning. Del Rio isn't a big city. Just 35,000 people, tucked right against the Texas border. The kind of place where names travel fast and everybody's connected to everybody by a friend, a cousin, or a neighbor. Caroline Peña was one of those names everyone seemed to know. They called her Caro, 32 years old, a twin, a mother of 5. Her oldest son just 17, only a year or so from walking across a graduation stage. To the people who loved her, none of that was the headline. The headline was smaller, quieter, and it showed up in the way people talked about her afterward. Zelina Ochoa knew her since childhood. She'll tell you Caro was born to be a mom, not just capable of it, but made for it. Ochoa remembers her as someone warm and funny, the kind of friend who could pick up right where you left off, even after years apart. The kind of person whose absence, once it happens, leaves a whole community feels. Christina Salinas knew that side of her even better. The two had been close for 8 years, closer than most friendships get, more like family. Caro showed up for her through everything, and not just for her. For her kids, too. In the days before everything changed, Salinas had a piece of video sitting on her phone that she didn't yet know would matter. Ring camera footage of Caro stopping by, the way she always did. Just an ordinary visit. Nothing about it hinted that it might be one of the last times she'd see her friend alive. There's one more detail that sits heavy with Salinas now, looking back. On the afternoon of June 25th, at 1:35, her phone rang. It was Caro. Salinas was at work. She didn't pick up. Less than 40 minutes later, everything changed. That's who Caroline Peña was before that Thursday. A friend people leaned on. A mother of 5. A woman people still talk about in the present tense out of habit before catching themselves and remembering she's gone. It's the version of her that her children will carry forward, regardless of how or when this case is finally resolved. But in Del Rio, one question is still sitting unanswered tonight. The same question a courtroom will eventually have to face. What happened to Caro? And why 3 women she may have known ended up connected to her death. If you'd scrolled past her account a few weeks earlier, you'd have seen exactly what everyone else did. A young mother. A proud one. Kitty Diaz, 21 years old, had posted a video with her son just days before his 4th birthday, talking about how much she loved him, how he'd given her life purpose, the kind of caption that reads like 100 others online. Nothing about it stood out. Nothing about it warned of what was coming. Her younger sister, 19-year-old Cookie Diaz, kept a lower profile. Online, she was harder to find, harder to read. But offline, the two were said to be close. Sisters in every sense, often described by people who knew them as inseparable, rarely seen without the other close by. And then there was their friend, 21-year-old Kyandra Faz. Of the 3, she's the one the public still knows the least about. No viral posts. No headlines about her life before that Thursday. Just a name that, as of June 25th, became permanently linked to 2 others. 3 young women connected by friendship and family. Ordinary lives, at least on the surface, in a small town where most people know most people. But by the end of the day, on June 25th, all 3 would be in police custody, each one connected to the death of Caroline Peña. And the question everyone in Del Rio would be asking wasn't just what happened. It was, how did it come to this? Thursday afternoons in Del Rio tend to move slow. It's a border town built around routine, errands, family visits, kids getting picked up from school. June 25th started out no different. Caroline Peña drove to a home on East 10th Street that afternoon, arriving in a black pickup truck. Investigators would later piece this part together from surveillance footage that, at the time, no one watching that street knew would end up in a police file. It's still not publicly known why she went there that day. What the footage shows is that she wasn't there long before a second vehicle pulled in behind her, a black Chrysler. Kitty and Cookie Diaz stepped out. According to the probable cause affidavit later filed in the case, Cookie Diaz approached Caroline first, holding what investigators describe only as an object believed to be a knife. Whatever words were exchanged in that first moment aren't part of the public record. What is on record is that a physical altercation broke out almost immediately between the two women. It didn't stay between the two of them for long. Kitty Diaz became physically involved next, and Kyandra joined shortly after her. For a short stretch of time, 3 against 1. In a driveway, in broad daylight, on a street where neighbors were going about an ordinary Thursday just doors away. The altercation was eventually broken up, and the 3 women left the area. What happened between that moment and Caroline arriving at Val Verde Regional Medical Center is still one of the quieter, unanswered parts of this case. Somehow, she got there. Officers were dispatched to the hospital around 2:10 that afternoon after staff reported a woman had come in with serious injuries. Word moves fast in a town of 35,000 people. Before police had even finished processing the scene on East 10th Street, a photo was already circulating on a local community page, an image showing Caroline in the aftermath of the confrontation. It didn't stay online long. It was taken down within hours. But for a brief window that afternoon, people in Del Rio were looking at that photo before they even knew her name. By the time doctors at Val Verde understood the full extent of her injuries, the decision was made to fly her to a trauma center in San Antonio. She was still fighting at that point. Her friend Christina Salinas made it to the hospital in time to see her before that flight. One last moment before everything changed for good. Caroline Peña would not survive the night. And while her family and friends were absorbing that loss, detectives in Del Rio were already working backward through the footage, building, piece by piece, the case that would lead them to 3 names before the sun went down. By 4 o'clock that afternoon, Del Rio police had moved fast enough to already know who they were looking for. Detectives had spent less than 2 hours working backward through the case, pulling surveillance footage from cameras near East 10th Street, collecting physical evidence from the scene, and speaking with witnesses who'd seen what happened. By the time officers arrived at the sisters' home, they weren't guessing. They had a video and 3 names to match it. What they found inside told its own story before a single word was spoken. According to the probable cause affidavit, Kitty and Cookie Diaz had already changed their clothes and showered by the time officers arrived. During a search of the home, investigators located the clothing Kitty had been wearing in the surveillance footage. It had been placed in the washing machine. Kitty and Cookie Diaz were taken into custody without incident. Kyandra was located and arrested a short time later. What happened next is the part of this case that spread the fastest, faster in some ways, than the news of Caroline's death itself. Local journalist Michael Elizondo was on scene as the sisters were walked out in handcuffs. Describing what he witnessed, he said Kitty was all smiling, goofing off like nothing happened. As she was placed into the patrol vehicle, witnesses say she rolled the window down and stuck her tongue out at the camera. Cookie's arrest played out differently, but no less jarring. She was heard laughing as she was led to the car, shouting toward whoever was filming to stop recording. Both sisters were smiling in their official booking photos. The video spread within hours, clipped, reposted, and picked up by outlets far beyond Del Rio. For a lot of people watching, that footage became the entire story. 2 young women who didn't seem to understand, or didn't seem to care, what they were now facing. All 3 women were booked at the Del Rio Police Department, then transported to the GEO Correctional Facility, where they remained held pending court proceedings. Each was assigned a bail of $5 million. It's worth noting how the charges themselves evolved. At the time of these arrests, Caroline was still alive, fighting for her life in a San Antonio hospital. The charges filed that afternoon reflected that. It wasn't until word came back hours later that she hadn't survived that the charges against all 3 women were formally upgraded to murder. Police confirmed a motive still hadn't been released. The investigation, they said, remained active, and additional charges were still possible as detectives continued working the case. For Del Rio, a small town unused to headlines like this one, the story was no longer just about what happened on East 10th Street. It was about the two faces that smiled their way into a patrol car and the questions that smile left behind. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. In the days after the arrests, Del Rio tried to make sense of something that didn't come with easy answers. Zelina Ochoa put it simply: no matter what happens in a courtroom, it doesn't undo what Caroline's children lost their mom. The women accused in her death will eventually see their own kids again, she said. Caro is a memory now. Her children are the ones left without a mother. Christina Salinas has replayed that missed call more times than she can count. Speaking to Fox News, she said, "I feel like if I would have answered that call, honestly, I would have been there with her. It wouldn't have gotten like that. It's the kind of thought that doesn't have a resolution, just a question that stays with her." For a town of 35,000 people, this wasn't a story that happened somewhere else. It happened on a residential street. Most people in Del Rio have driven down without a second thought, and it left behind a version of the town that has to hold two things at once: grief for a woman many of them knew personally, and disbelief over who's now accused of taking her from them. As of now, the case remains active. Police have not released a motive. Investigators haven't said whether anyone beyond the three women already charged may have been involved, though they've indicated additional charges are still possible as evidence continues to come in. Kitty Diaz, Cookie Diaz, and Kyandra Faz remain held at the GEO Correctional Facility, each on $5 million bail. No trial date has been set. For now, the case sits where most cases like this do in their early stages, full of evidence, but still missing the one thing everyone wants most: an answer for why. Caroline Peña is survived by her 5 children, her twin sister, and a community that, by every account, hasn't stopped talking about her laugh. This is where the story stands tonight. And when it moves forward, when hearings are set, when a motive surfaces, if one ever does, that's a story we'll be here to follow. Tonight, in a small town on the Texas border, a family is planning a funeral instead of a summer. 3 young women are sitting in a jail cell instead of scrolling past everyone else's ordinary Thursday the way they once did. And a case that started with a driveway, a video, and a phone call that never got answered is still waiting for the one thing it hasn't given anyone yet: an answer for why. We'll be following this case as it develops. New hearings, new evidence, and if one ever surfaces, a motive. If you want to see where it goes next, make sure you're subscribed and notifications are on so you don't miss it. If this story affected you the way it affected us, let us know in the comments, and tell us where in the world you're watching from tonight. We read every one. Until next time, take care of each other.